thank you for the introduction, and we are absolutely delighted to present to you today a new website that we developed for allied health clinical educators. I have to say right from the outset that we had to narrow the scope of our project to allied health, but as you will see through our presentation today, a lot of what's on this website is equally applicable across all the health professions. So we are very pleased to be able to unveil the website to you today. Before I begin, there are a number of acknowledgements I need to make. The first is to the funding body. We were absolutely thrilled to be able to get funding for this project. We all heard this morning that collaboration is a personal responsibility, and we took this very seriously. When we had the idea of developing a website for educators, we wanted to consult very, very widely and in fact engaged with the 5 universities that are actually listed on your screen today. So it's not just a website that was developed by staff at Griffith University. It is a website where we had a very participatory approach, where we included people from all around the state. And certainly we can say that the problems and the issues that we identified, which Amanda, our fantastic project manager, has unveiled, that there are problems that occur throughout Australia in clinical education, which hopefully we've addressed through this website. Again, just going on with the acknowledgements, we have had a core project management team, which is illustrated by the small white circle in this diagram. And these are staff members that are employed through Griffith University, but represent each of the allied health professions that we are targeting in this website. We have project sponsors, both myself and Associate Professor Lisa Luxo, as well as a steering committee which has not only represented the universities but also the health and hospital health services, the private sector and also national organisations. And of course, and most importantly, we have consulted very, very widely with clinical educators across the state. And I'll share with you in a minute a few of our statistics regarding our consultation. But what was our vision? Our vision was to develop an accessible, contemporary, comprehensive portal of learning and support materials for clinical educators and their students. So why was this important to do? Well, from a personal experience, I've worked in every state around Australia, and so many high-quality resources have been developed across these states. But you would never know that they actually exist. And if you do know that some of them do exist, it's almost impossible to access them because you're not a member of that particular institution or organisation. So wouldn't it be wonderful if there was a one-stop shop where you could actually go to that place and access all of the high-quality resources that would support clinical education? So that was our vision. And that is why we invested the time and effort to develop ClinEdAus. So our project objectives were, firstly, we needed to identify supervisory training needs because this one-stop shop needed to address the needs of clinical supervisors. We needed to ensure that the model of providing these training needs was actually appropriate for clinical educators. And we needed to also ensure that it met professional accreditation requirements. We needed to identify the resources that were already out there so we wouldn't reinvent the wheel. But we also needed to identify where the gaps actually were so that we could develop new supervisory resources. We then needed to develop our portal or website and test it, and then report and disseminate our findings. Because the funding period was limited to 1 year, we needed to think of a way that we could actually make this project achievable within the time frame. because as you can imagine, it is quite a large project to undertake. So we, by necessity, limited the professions to exercise physiology, occupational therapy, physiotherapy and speech pathology. But as I said, a lot of the resources that are available on this portal can be applied to the other health professions. And of course, we felt it was really important to target practice areas such as Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander health, aged care, mental health and rural health, but we also added in a section of the website for interprofessional learning and interprofessional practice as well. Before I hand over to Amanda to tell you a little bit more about the work that her and her team have been doing, I'd just like to point out that we had a very, very tight timeline. We had less than 12 months to be able to deliver this project, and our consultation was very, very wide. We not only searched the literature to identify high quality resources that we could actually put onto our portal, but we also conducted interviews with key stakeholders to gain their perspectives of what were the needs of the clinical educators, and we undertook 53 of those interviews. We conducted an online survey with educators and managers about their clinical education needs, and we got responses from 139 clinical educators and 68 managers. And we conducted focus groups in Townsville, Toowoomba, Rockhampton, Cairns and Brisbane, each having between 9 and 13 participants. So we feel that what we have developed actually meets the needs of clinical educators across those 4 health professions in Queensland, and in fact the voice of those educators has actually been heard and displayed in our website. So what Amanda is going to do now is to report on the results of all of that consultation and then show you the website.
Thanks, Andrea. This has been a very exciting project for me. There's a tangible product at the end of it, and we're really looking forward to this go live in probably early December. So, as Andrea said, we undertook some statewide surveys across those 4 professions, across managers and clinical educators, and there were some themes that came out of that. We did some thematic analysis. So, under demographics, it was quite clear that Queensland Health had actually developed quite a lot of resources online, and for those of you with a medium-term memory, ClinEdQ might sound familiar to ClinEdAus, but anyway, the staff who were in Queensland Health felt quite well served, I think, from from those resources and the training that they'd received. But because we're trying to push our clinical placements beyond, as we've heard from a lot of the speakers today, beyond the Queensland Health placement arena, I think this particular website will address some of those needs for the one-stop shop type approach to information. We also, in the surveying, did try and target all of our target areas in our professions, but we did find that we had less than expected pro rata sort of responses around Indigenous health, mental health, remote and very remote settings, and particularly from exercise physiology. And talking about the scope of current clinical education, some of the things that our respondents indicated were we really need to look at how do people supervise students from outside their own professions. And I think we've heard a lot today about the whole push around that interprofessional, and certainly in rural and remote. Also that there were experienced educators who had been to the workshops and they'd been doing their education for quite a while, and they wanted something that would re-energise or refresh or take them that little bit further. In terms of training, it was clear that workshops were highly valued, that face-to-face contact was highly valued. However, I think there was also, for the future, a really keen interest in online self-paced learning materials and webinar type education. In terms of resources, people wanted to have access to the things that they knew others had access to. So there was a bit of Queensland Health envy, I think, amongst some people. But that all the highly valued resources come onto the portal. And also that the portal would be an opportunity to raise awareness of a lot of the resources that Health Workforce Australia had produced. We actually did survey. In the survey we had a couple of questions about awareness of Health Workforce Australia and some of the resources. And yeah, there's a way to go in terms of clinical educators really knowing and understanding about all of the good things that are out there. So in terms of what we found in our survey, there's no rocket science here, lack of time, and unfortunately still limited access to computers and internet, and I think that's a finding for, you know, managers and system administrators. In terms of the focus group findings, people were very clear that because of the finding around time and that we needed to have short, intuitive, easy to remember domain names, that we needed capable search engines and efficient user-friendly site navigation, that the website architecture that we presented to people was supported, and you would have received a brochure in your pack today. So if you open up that brochure, you'll get a sense of the sort of things that were in our website architecture. And also, terminology is not a common language, and some people talk about, you know, integrated practice-based learning, and other people talk about clinical placements, and so there was quite a bit of diversity in terminology, so that we will address that on the website. And this notion of one-stop shop was well supported and reinforced through our focus groups. I'll talk a little bit more about copyright in a minute, but there was a strong support for being able to use the materials on the website and do some of the things that you can do with Creative Commons license, which is download them and customise them a bit for your local area without having to seek that permission each time. So that's a goal of this project, is to achieve that outcome ultimately. There's a few more steps to go through there. And support for an interactive component to this. I think some of the other speakers have actually demonstrated that. I like that idea of the virtual staff room and that sort of thing. That could become phase 2 of this project, where we take on some of those more interactive components. We presented to the focus groups the resources that we'd located, and they told us about new resources that they knew about. So we sort of did our environmental scanning and then built upon that with our survey and focus groups. People were quite clear that when they did find these very valuable resources, a lot of them were 20 and 30 pages and they were busy, so they were really wanting help to actually identify the key components of those resources that would give them the immediate help they needed with their students. So navigation guides was something that they wanted. Videos was also, you know, people learn in different ways, and I think a range of modalities is always a good idea. There was an interest in us exploring how they could go beyond just looking at the website and using the resources to actually contributing to the CPD, and there's been a bit of discussion about that as well. And some people were interested in examinable modules and certificates, and we've built that into the website. Just a bit about copyright and intellectual property. Undertaking a project like this, copyright and intellectual property is one of those really complex things that you've really got to get your head around and tackle, because well, you can't expose any organisation to danger from lawsuits and that sort of thing. And so I guess we've been lucky to have a very capable copyright advisor, Anna Daniel at Griffith, who's been working with Peter Westwood and the team to work our way through. We are actually seeking permission from all third-party providers, so some of you here may have already been approached. And that's a baseline, so we'll have to seek that permission. But in addition, we're also trying to negotiate our way through to creating a Creative Commons licence on the whole website, so that users of the website will be able to use the material under a Creative Commons licence, which will, I think, just decrease administrative burden and be very positive sort of outcome. But there's more to be done there. So, in terms of hearing what our advisors had been telling us through the focus groups and the surveys, we came up with a domain name that we think is short and punchy, and it is a little similar to ClinEdQ, but has got a broader scope. We did think ClinEd Global or ClinEd the World, but we've stuck with ClinEdAus. We have actually registered 4 domain names, so we've gone for .org.au as the main site, but we've actually also registered .org, and we've also registered .com.au and .com. So it doesn't matter if you actually don't quite remember what the end bits of the domain name are, you'll be directed to the site. So we think that's quite good for utility. We've developed the information guides or the navigation guides. We have been busy videoing clinical educators, students, and a couple of actor scenarios. We're in the process of uploading all the materials. There are people at the office, as we speak, uploading. And copyright permission is well underway, but not quite complete. So the next steps, hopefully by close of business Friday, I'll be able to send out the invitation to participate in the user testing, and that will give you access to the web development site. So you'll have a look at the web development site, and then you undertake this short survey monkey to give us some information back. We'll have a look at the responses there, make some final adjustments to the portal. I'm also attending the Health Workforce Australia and the Indigenous Allied Health Australia conferences to just flag to people that this is coming, and then hopefully we'll be going live from the 4th of December. So, and it's really just a beginning. This is phase 1, the platform. It will provide the platform to upload all sorts of fabulous things into the future. So I think this is really just the beginning. In terms of sustainability, I mean, websites are not things that you build and then they just sit there managing themselves. So we have had to think about sustainability. We have managed through using the project funds, we have managed to free up $20,000 worth of Griffith funding this year, which we'll be able to use next year, which just buys us a bit more time while we sort out this sort of funding model down the track. We've actually paid in advance for the domain name registration for 2 years, and also for the web hosting through our web developer and New Business Media. Just give them a little plug. And beyond that, we'll really have to explore the efficiencies through centralising some of the maintenance of all these Health Workforce Australia funded websites, because there are a few flowers blooming, and I have been in touch with HWA, and we are talking about that. And the governments and the universities, really, if this is a useful tool, then everyone's got a bit of a vested interest in making sure there is a sustainable funding model. So there's our homepage. It's actually been updated since I took this, because there's now a picture of Andrea there. As you will see, if I click on hopefully that looks promising. There we go. Ta-da! Now, not all of it's uploaded, so I've got to take you on a very careful journey so that we find the bits that have been uploaded in the pictures. I thought I might just start by taking you up here. What I really wanted was an open access website. We actually did a little bit of environmental scanning at the beginning of the current websites, and there are some good websites. You know, there's Hetty in New South Wales and Vic Portal in Victoria and Tel Centre in Western Australia and so forth and so on. But they all had their constraints. And one of the things that our survey respondees really said was it's quite off-putting when you get to a website and you have to create a username immediately. You can't see anything behind that. You know, you can't see into the website. So I really wanted this to be an open access website. However, to set up a username does have its place in terms of added functionality. So we have got the capacity to create a profile, and the functionality that will then allow you to save your... when I go through, you'll see you can press on buttons to do reflective activities, interacting with the material. So that'll help you to save your reflective diaries into your My Profile. So you can return to them, you can perhaps do a reflection before and after a placement and save your material. And just thinking ahead, I think it was the occupational therapist particularly can use their activity as a clinical educator for CPD points. So this will be downloadable, and this will then provide some kind of, you know, firm evidence that you have actually been engaged in this kind of reflective activity. The other action that it will allow you to do is to sit for the exams. We haven't got many of them at the moment, I'll tell you which sections, but it'll allow you to sit for the exams, and then it automatically spits you out a certificate if you well, we think it'll be 100% correct to get a certificate. And I think you just put, yeah, you have to do your My Profile, and then it'll spit you out a certificate with your name. So if we go back, I'll just show you the drop-down boxes. So practice context has target area, which includes all of those. Aged care, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, interprofessional, mental health, private practice, rural and remote. So there's material in each of those sections. Then we have the four professions that are the focus at the moment, but this website could easily be added to, you know, because a lot of the material is generic, and you could easily add in any profession-specific material just by adding in another profession there. And then we've got some workplace information and some university placement information. I think this morning people have really commented on that disconnect in universities and supervisors and students. Hopefully this can become a bit of a virtual hub for some of that. Then we've got preparing for and managing clinical placements. And they're not quite in the order I want them in at the moment, but anyway, they're the components that people are working on to upload material. And core clinical education skills. So we're linking to each of the assessments websites. So for physiotherapy, there's the APP, which I think is hosted through Monash or somewhere. And there's the SPEFR for the OTs and the Compass for the speech pathologists, and I think the exercise physiologists are working on their common assessment tool, so that can be a link later on. And yeah, communication, facilitating learning, managing the title of managing difficult situations took a fair bit of time in the focus groups because people didn't want us to talk about difficult students or, you know, misbehaving students. It was all about recognising that it's an interaction between the clinical educator and the student, and that the difficulty can arise from any side of that equation or from the context. So managing difficult situations, managing the workload with a student, meeting diverse learning needs, providing feedback, and maintaining emotional well-being for everybody, so for yourself. So there's a bit about burnout and things like that in there. I thought I might just take you more deeply into the website if I move across. Yeah, are we finished? Oh, well, okay, I can finish. So that just gives you an idea about the materials. There's a reflection activity, and then we go into the topics, and if I click on a guide to interprofessional education, and then there's the add to my reflections box there. So that just gives you a bit of an overview. But those of you who want to participate in the user testing, I've got quite a lot of people on my email lists, but if you are particularly interested, you could send me an email and I can make sure you get sent the invitation directly. Thank you.